Greetings. Welcome everybody to our latest webinar, this one being a nod to the concentrate side of the cannabis industry. Obviously, we want to recognize the fact that we have 710 that just occurred recently. And of course, for those that don't know, 710, upside down oil, obviously a nod to all things concentrate. Being the 50% of product that's sold in dispensaries or on the concentrate side, it's only fitting for us to do a webinar about it. So welcome. We'd love to welcome you to this show. My name is Lance Lambert. I am the VP of Marketing and Biz Dev here at GreenBros. I'm very excited to have a few guests join us just now. We will have our founder and CEO, Cullen Raichart, that will be jumping on and telling a story that makes me smile just thinking about it every time we talk. Another guest we'll have is Eric Vlosky from PurePressure. A friend of mine that goes back to, gosh, when we started that company in 2015 when we were cutting our teeth in the legal industry of Denver, Colorado. A couple of housekeeping things really quick. We're very fortunate to have some of our friends and fellow teammates that are going to be helping out with some of the chat and Q&A. You'll notice you have that chat section. Feel free to post questions within the Q&A, or oftentimes people just post up in the chat. Either way, you will have individuals like Lisa, one of our rockstar territory managers out of the Northeast, that will be answering your questions as quickly as possible. Ones that pertain specifically to PurePressure, of course, we will save those for Eric Vlosky at the end of the show. We did have a poll that you probably noticed coming in. I believe there's another poll that might pop up along the way. There we go. A great question. What do you all do with your trim? A lot of you that are familiar with GreenBros, myself being a grower, Marco, my right-hand man on this show, being a grower, Cullen being a grower and former caregiver. We ask ourselves these questions, and I have to be the first to admit, I oftentimes would throw my trim along with my C's and D's in a bag and put it in the corner, and friends would ask me if I'm going to make, edibles out of it or something. I want to get around to it. A lot of people, that's what happens. They end up tossing it into a compost pile. But others do extract it, refine it, those trichomes down into concentrates. Some use it to make pre-rolls, rather to pinch through the center or to roll. Other people just dispose of it. We wanted to ask this question and find out what you all had as far as your feedback. We know a lot of you are visiting us from around the country, actually some people from around the world. So obviously this question kind of varies depending on what your local rules and regulations are and how advanced you are in your SKU offerings, which is something that we'll be getting into shortly within the webinar. We will get into that later though, and I'm actually going to fill mine out really quick right now. All right, put it there. I have to admit, I actually put mine in the compost pile last year. Don't shoot me. It's a little busy. Had a little pandemic going on. I want to kick off though now with welcoming Cullen Raichart to the show. Cullen, are you out there with us in the ethos?
I am, Lance. Thank you so much.
Definitely, man. So stoked to have you on. Obviously, we've been friends for a minute now, knowing your background. And, one story that always comes to mind when we catch up, and I think it's a story that really brings a lot of relevance because for those, again, that are familiar with the brand, we very much pride ourselves on being industry born. Myself being a NorCal kid, several others, Marco being NorCal, Cullen, you being from California yourself. A lot of us grew up around this industry back when it was legacy or traditional. Many of us voted on, obviously, Prop 215, specifically in California back in 1996. But I want to hear the story, man, because this is really where it all began for this company, but it's where it all began for you. So the story, of course, I'm speaking of is where you started with your very first machine and how it ties into extracts. And I'll have you turn on your camera as well if you get a chance, and we'll have you up here on screen. There he is.
I appreciate it, Lance. I mean, this is a story I tell when everybody asks, how did this company get started? And, it really started with a friend of mine asking me, like, he was dry sifting keef because he loved hash. And that was his thing. Like he was a hash guy. He's like, we called him English Pete. I guess his English friends called him American Pete. But
funny how those nicknames work.
Yeah, you gotta, Anyway, he was great friend, and he was like, this sucks, And we looked at what was out on the internet, and what was existing was the tumbles, the round circular tumblers that, kind of like the circle tumble trimmer things that are out there. But the tumblers, and what we didn't like about the tumbler was it seemed to break the product, like the plant material, down a lot. And he was using a stiff screen that was stretched over. It was a t-shirt screen,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Kind of like what a lot of people use, but it was stretched. And we, looking at that concept, was like, well, that gives you consistent hole sizing, right? Because you stretch it, it's always going to have that hole sizing, and that's kind of what led to the impetus of the piece of equipment. But I basically ended up putting 4 screens together in a box with hinges and a lid, and had a pulley on the side. And have you ever seen one of those wheels those like 8 balls that you use to drive a truck with? Yeah, I had that.
I've seen Smokey and the Bandit. I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. So, but anyway, I was turning it, and I just thought, the keef is heavy; it's just going to fall, right? Yeah. So I had a big piece of plastic underneath, and I started turning it, man, and my house got this like yellow haze to it. What the hell's going on here? Just created.
So it was working, but
it was working really well. I was really excited about that part, but after that became, the other challenges of how do you capture the keef, and how do you manage that? It started out in a big box, and then you'd have to scrape the whole box, and then ended up evolving into pans. And that was really my first experience, to be honest with you, about taking a concept, a mental concept, a visual, in your head thing, and taking it out and putting it in the real world, and then refining it to a point where it's functional for the end user. And then beyond that, making it functional for the manufacturing, right? So we went through, I learned everything I know, basically from the building of that machine. We also got a patent on that product. And it was one of the first patents, U.S. patents, modern day, U.S. patents that had cannabis in the patent. We thought that was pretty exciting at the time.
Yeah, post-prohibition. To your point, that's very because pre-prohibition was a different story. But for modern day, people are still scared to get patents in this space. So I think that's very valid for sure, right? Yeah,
it was very cool. It was just it's one of those things, and what the thing that's interesting about the whole thing though is that. I went and I thought I was going to make, I'm going to be a billionaire, but there was no desire at the time for hash. And it was like, well, what do you do with keef and refine, a highly concentrated keef product like that? And, so there was a little bit of kind of, because guys up in the Emerald Triangle at the time would have, tons of trim.
Yeah.
It was like, well, we're going to do something with it someday. But, that product actually allowed for you to reduce the biomass significantly and get down to a very high concentration of trichome heads and stalks and stuff. And then from there, you can do whatever you want to. You can obviously press it into hash, which is English peat right there. This is a great product. I used to love that myself. It was one of my favorite. And then, of course, now, with PurePressure, I mean, those guys have got squished down to the fucking T, man. Those guys have got nailed. So,
and it's really,
absolutely. So it's a great product to pair with that kind of a process if you're making, a rosin type of extract. For sure. But you can also take it and then, you could do a butane or some other kind of extract with it as well. You just have a much higher concentration of oils in your product. So.
Yeah, and we'll get into that really quick because you make a valid point. It's something that in talking to Eric a little bit earlier, I had to admit to him, back in NorCal, my days, in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, to your point, concentrate and specifically extracts that come out of concentrates, weren't quite the popular thing. Everyone was still so enveloped in flower and in the latest cultivar and what I call the trendy triangle strains were kind of coming up on scene. Back then, you and I know we always joke around about it was Sour Diesel and it was Blue Dream and, maybe a little Northern Light still hanging on from the 90s. But the industry has really evolved and matured. One thing that I think is quite fascinating is how many people entering into the industry on the consumer side that are opening up their mind to concentrates as opposed to traditional means of consumption that is just straight flour. So you're right, a lot has changed. But again, to your point, the demand, where was the demand back then? Because we're talking, that was what, 9 years ago?
Don't say it, man. Oh, God.
It's been a minute. I'll just say
it's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
So yeah, I think definitely this is some stuff that we can segue and get into. We'll jump into a few slides here to kind of cover that. But the one thing we want to share with you as an audience is exactly what Cullen's talking about. Some of those opportunities that exist. And we have some examples that we can talk about and go over of individuals that, are breaking down that biomass and essentially condensing what takes up, 5x the amount of space when it's not extracted, and really taking that down from, again, a dozen totes to a few totes that are stored for future use. So let's jump into it right now.
I think, Lance, just to add, sorry, to add to that is like one of the beautiful things about dry sift in itself is you capture, 90% of the flavor profile in the dry sift, whereas you lose that if you go just to a complete extract. In some instances, not depending on what you extract to, right? But that's what always amazed me is that you could take that product, that dry sift, and you could compress it, and I knew exactly what I'd grab a puck and you could smell it. It smelled, it had flavor, it had, it was all there, just as if it was the plant, and I appreciate that a lot because I'm kind of a full bodied flavor kind of guy. I don't have the palate to be as discerning as others are, but I do enjoy the full effect of a complete flower product, and that's in a concentrated form. So it doesn't get better than that.
No, I think it's a valid point. Again, I think we'll talk about it on one of the slides, but I have to agree with you. I consider myself a connoisseur. A few of my friends might call me a can of snob. That's fine. Definitely I'm a huge fan of cultivars. Might be a little bit of a genetics collector myself. But I agree with you. After what occurred in specifically coming out of Southern California with VapeGate, it seems that a lot of people did back away from utilizing chemicals for extraction, right? And rather that be, like you mentioned, butane, CO2, even ethanol. All of them have certain expenses and never mind the residual or certain byproduct, that might be the outcome versus something that is pure and true and totally solventless. So I tell people this is like the organic 11 grain bread that I grew up with my hippie mom versus getting the enriched white Wonder Bread that so many people are familiar with. There's less fillers and things that might be questionable with the former versus the latter. So good points.
It's experiential, right? I don't think that, that's the biggest part. It's experiential. And I think, we're starting to see this 180, right? Where people are going, wait a minute, it's not THC. That's the gasoline, obviously, but that's not the answer because that just doesn't satisfy anything like the full experience, which becomes so much more heady and kind of engulfing, right? You get all the terpenes and all that. Anyway, don't want to go on that road, but I think it's so important, and it's one of those things that you really lack, especially with something like a CO2, where you only get X, So anyway,
and I have friends, kind of those entry level, friends that are realizing that alcohol is maybe a little more of a poison versus cannabis, where we have an endocannabinoid system. We actually have a system within our body that is able to process this. And a lot of them say that. They say, compared to the high I would get back when I consumed in college or my earlier years, when I'm ripping from a pen, it's like all of a sudden I'm high and it's kind of this spacey, disconnected high. And that's what I explained to him. It's not the true entourage effect. And I use it, me, we're both gearheads, man. I'll always be, but I always references, if you're talking about, again, THC or specifically the cannabinoid makeup, that's the engine. But to your point, the terpenes are the steering wheel. That's the experiential that really takes you to that next level, that makes you want to enjoy that music or that food or anything else that much more, is really having that true entourage effect. So again,
back early, I'm sorry, I know, got to tell this part. I got back early in the days, I had done a bunch of testing, and I had collected a ton of keef from, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 different strains. And I pressed it all together and made a nice puck out of it and lost it. And I put it somewhere and couldn't find it. I found it like a year later. And it was magical because when you broke it apart and you had a little bit, you went through the experiences of all the different strains that were in it. We called it the smorgasbord because you would kind of go, whoop, And you're like, wait a minute, this is really cool. But from the heaviness of a good indica to the excitedness of a good sativa. I mean, they had green Kraken, sour diesel, and I think blueberry, and I mean, it just was loaded. So it was kind of this really interesting experience. And you don't really. I think that's a lot of that is missing. And for a lot of people, they just maybe have never experienced it. But you and I know, growing up in this, and then being so involved at the early stages, there's experiential cannabis that's so much different and so much more valuable for, I don't know, for whatever reason you want to use it. I mean, it's kind of like the first time you drink a $200 bottle of wine and you go
versus $3 chuck.
I guess there is something there.
There is. No, and you have a valid point, man. And friend, Kevin Jodry up on the hill, but also Cameron from Fiddler, several of the OGs that I keep up with, back in NorCal. They mentioned that. They mentioned they're smoking on forbidden fruit with a 15% THC. This whole race to the top. It's funny because a lot of the underground and legit cups of NorCal and Oregon, where I'm coming at you from right now, Bend, Oregon, a lot of these guys, it's a lower cannabinoid or lower THC, but you look at the terpene profile and it's considerably higher. And those are the ones that are winning because it's taking guys back to that experiential we had before it was this race to the top, right? Yeah. So again, I think all very relevant and relative to the topic and into the conversation for sure. So, yeah, we'll jump in. We'll get into the slides here, and a few of the things that we're going to cover, obviously, are some of the things that we're talking about and discussing conversationally. So we will jump right in. And this is what I kind of jokingly, I love it. Marco and I, you guys get it. We have fun here. We're for the industry. We obviously pride ourselves in being industry born. But we were talking about some of our friends' operations. Like I have a buddy of mine, this guy, Steve, and I grew up with. He owns Sugar Tree Farms up here in Medford. And I walk into one of his buildings and it literally reminds me of Indiana Jones. If I know I'm dating myself, you guys. Yes, I'm a Gen Xer. I've accepted that. But if you guys remember, what they did with the Ark, with the coveted Ark at the end of the original Indiana Jones, and you just see crate after crate after crate. And that's the same with my buddy, his operation. He'd have all these HDX totes just stored with a bunch of trim and sticks and stems and all this other stuff, just all byproduct from the flower. But once he got through his A's and B's, a lot of times he'd just store them away. And that's exactly what we're seeing, just a huge amount of volume in bulk storage. And quite honestly, depending on where your operation is, for those of you in California, Washington, Colorado, where square footage is at a premium, jealous of friends in Oklahoma and even friends out in Illinois, they're able and they can afford to have that extra space. But for a lot of us, we can't. Talking about some of the things, though, we want to jump into. What are some of the pros and cons? So we recognize, CO2 is definitely one of those leaders when it comes to extract. Pros, hey, most solvents are readily available. You can get this stuff easily. It's accessible. Obviously, there's some licensing and permitting associated with it, but still there. Fast processing time. You guys know you can blast it through and get that byproduct and that end product you're looking to accomplish in a short amount of time. And then solvents usually do target trichomes. You don't always exactly extract all of the trichomes, though, and that's one thing that we'll get into in a little bit. But some of the cons, obviously, high initial cost of equipment. Again, you guys know, you see this little diagram on the right. It's obviously a kind of simplified version of what's a more common extract process that's associated with utilizing some sort of chemical, rather, again, it be CO2, butane, etc. But volatile gases, I have to tell you guys, one story again, time back to Oregon, the mayor of Portland, he rents out a few homes. One of his home renters actually leveled his house using BHO. I had a friend down in Australia that got hurt substantially by processing via BHO. So there are some things that obviously come with cons associated with processing that way. But then obviously needing the extra safety training to stay buttoned up with that. What the system requires, the purging, post-extraction, the cleaning, etc. Poor processing can lead obviously to trace solvent. I don't know anyone that if you've ever ripped a BHO pen, I've gotten a splitting headache before. I know that's because of the residual. And this obviously is before testing got really stringent. And then it's perceived as less healthy. Again, not to get all hippie on you guys being a California kid, but if you can get it natural, if you can use Mother Nature, and by that I mean heat and pressure, just like they do with diamonds, right? It's the same thing. It's that much more natural for you to consume. So as we kind of look into, obviously, the more natural way to go about it, solventless. And this is something that I'm stoked to see it becoming so popular in recent years, along with, fresh frozen as another example. But no chemicals required, right? Solvent-free is a value prop to your consumer, to your customer. It's less complicated as far as waste and disposal requirements. And again, some of the byproducts that come out of processing if using solvent. They obviously contain fewer impurities. Now, keep in mind, you have to start off with that good raw flour that doesn't have any contaminants in it, but definitely a factor. No purging needed. Obviously better for the environment, more cost effective for small business, especially for SMBs that are scaling up and trying to diversify their SKUs. A con would be a little more challenging to produce in mass quantities. We'll have a discussion with Eric again just now from PurePressure, because I think he has some valid points on how you can scale up solventless. And then slower than solvent extraction. Again, this is something where you're talking more of, I hate comparing alcohol, but microbrew versus macrobrew, right? So someone who takes the time and really puts that effort into cultivating the best possible end product for their consumer. Love the great little videos on the side too. Thank you for that, Marco. So talking about our systems, you guys know we're not too much on the infomercial. We're definitely all about educational. But we did start off with talking about how Cullen started this business, how we started off as GreenBros. And that was with the Alchemist. We actually have the 215 and the 420, the 215 being more of the tabletop entry level line that we have to offer, the 420 being for more of the scaled up operations. Easy to operate, really simple to clean, and we'll show some video that gives more insight on that. It is gentle to your product. The yields, what we're hearing back from our customers is the yields coming in right about on average 20-21%. You can see obviously there's a little bit of variance there based on the biomass that's put into the machine. It maintains the purity of your products, right, through the process. As far as us, we manufacture everything with the expectation that it will be in an operation requiring some level of GMP, EGMP qualification. So we like using things like 316 surgical stainless steel, easier to clean, safer, etc. Obviously, it perfectly complements our dry trimmers. We have multiple screen sizes to choose from, and a little bit of a teaser. You guys know we always like to take care of those that participate in these events. We are going to have a promotion that we're going to be sharing closer to the end. But I'll give you a hint. It ties into getting a killer deal on something that will help you be able to sort and sift that much more efficiently. Moving on from screens, obviously, one thing we just did, I think it was just about a few months ago, 2-3 months ago, we actually took all of our warranties from a 1-year to a 3-year warranty. One thing that the team obviously references that I hear constantly is it's like we're building the Toyota Camrys to the industry just because of the reliability. Nothing against BMW, but if you ever own one, oftentimes, right, that 50,000 mile mark, simplest things like your cup holders start breaking, right? That's not the way that we design our equipment. We design it to last, and it lasts so long, in fact, that we actually bumped ourselves up to a 3-year warranty. And it pairs perfectly with PurePressure's solutions. Again, something we'll get into just now. This is something that's really cool as far as an infograph. I know Tim is on here right now. Tim is our territory manager out of the Colorado area. And he is like, you know what? We need to share an infograph to really help our end users and our clients understand what you can do with this equipment. And so we want to pop up another poll here really quick. What's your favorite concentrate? Is it edibles? Is it keef, rosin, wax, shatter, hash, crumble, etc.? Obviously, there's a lot of options. For myself personally, I'm going to submit. I'm into edibles. I did take a break from consuming flower, although I usually did a dry herb vape. Thank you, G-Pen, Firefly. But I even backed away from that during the pandemic because I wanted to be as safe as possible. So for me, I shifted towards edibles. Check out some of these SKUs though, you guys. And again, depending on what market you're in, I know I get it. For people in Colorado, California, Oregon, you obviously are very diverse in your SKUs already. You're making sure you're utilizing every component of this plant possible. But we do understand also some of the emerging markets. Again, maybe you're out on the East Coast, maybe you're in the Midwest, and you guys are really highly focused on flower and not quite sure what to do with your byproduct, that being trim. Here are some of the options and opportunities that you can look into. And these bring some value as far as if you look at what the price points are. Now, the pricing that we obviously did a little bit of an investigation into, these are national averages. So again, this might vary. Here in Oregon, the market's still a little saturated, whereas demand is a bit higher in, say, a market like Minnesota that's currently still medical and only allows concentrates. So your price points are going to be higher there. But you can get an idea. Even something simple like smokable keef, one of my favorites, Free Weed, which is a company out of NorCal. They do these little jars where they offer up a gram of keef at a very reasonable price. Again, if you just want to keef while you're dry herb vaping, your joints, etc. You guys see some of the other examples here, though. I know moon rocks aren't as popular as they used to be. Those are a little temperamental. I'm glad they're not as popular as they were. But rosin, your resins, your edibles, your hash, all these things are obviously becoming higher in demand. And for those of you that follow, RBHeadset.io, BDS Analytics, they're always doing reports showing just how diverse the portfolio is for a lot of these companies out there. So again, this is something that's very important to consider. Moving on to the next slide, we obviously want to share a little bit of insight on, again, the machines that complement what we have to offer. So of course, we have our Model M trimmer. We have our 215 dry trimmer. The nice thing about these machines is you'll notice, unlike the tumble and crumble offerings that are out there, not naming any names, but there's different ways to trim your flower. We don't use vacuums. We don't use suction. We don't use anything that extrapolates or pulls, and who knows where all that goes. Literally, as you see in the video here, the trim just drops straight down from the turntable style trimmer into this catch, which can in turn go directly into a concentrate solution. I think this is a perfect time for us to bring on Eric. Eric, are you available to jump on for a quick chat, my friend?
Sure am. How's it going, everyone?
Awesome. Eric Vlosky, good to have you, man. Again, we go way back, I know, to the days of, my gosh, when there was still a social network called Mass Roots and a news site called The Cannabist, but we won't go there. But man, you guys have been around since about 2015 and been doing phenomenally well. I have to tell you, I think I stopped by your operation when I was out there in Colorado a few days ago. Love to see how successful you guys have been, what you've been doing in scaling up. I would love to get a little bit of your input, though, on what we've been discussing so far.
Yeah, there is a ton of growth happening right now with Solventless, and the data really backs that up. I am a big data nerd when it comes to consumer trends and what's going on. And MJ Biz had a really great article that came out recently, which was pulling data from, I believe it was Headset. It might have been BDSA, but they were saying that, actually rosin is the #1 growing subcategory of concentrates over the last year. And they were pulling from Oregon, California, Colorado. I mean, we're talking about mature markets, not just small and upcoming ones. So there's a ton of growth happening with Solventless. And I think, especially with Sift, there's a lot of opportunities right now. Ice water hash and live rosin is being made, the world over. But Sift is still finding its way and coming up. But it's also a pretty simple process to navigate for a lot of consumers, because trim doesn't play that nice with the ice water hash process, but it does play really, really well with Sift, for example. Yeah. So, there's so much to talk about, and I know we could literally go on for hours here. But it's really cool to see that so many people are really starting to find interest in this, and also making a lot of different SKUs, because you really don't need specialized training to be able to create some of these solventless SKUs that come from Sift and Sift rosin. And I think one of the really exciting categories right now is definitely edibles and infused products, which is where you can take a lot of this Sift and a lot of this trim that, might not be perfect for, an $80 gram on the shelf, but then you can still turn it into a premium price point edible, tincture, topical, things like that. And there's a lot of brands out there that are starting to see success with exactly that business model.
Yeah, and I think that was one thing actually that Brady, speaking of rock stars on your team, he brought up. Is kind of cool. He busted out his tablet. He's like, to give you guys an idea of where concentrates are specifically in the Colorado market, he pointed out the third most selling, and it was, to your point, it was from headset.io. I remember him referencing it, was a pre-roll that was rolled in Kiev. And forgive me, I can't remember which company it was out there. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it ranked third in top sales for a state, I think, to your point, it speaks volumes. And I like how you do obviously share the fact that this information is being extrapolated by these third-party companies from mature markets. So we very much, you and I both, Oklahoma City, love it. Love what's going on in Oklahoma in general. Love what's going on in Florida and in the Northeast. But those markets are a little behind, right? To your point. Adult use has been legal in the state of Colorado since 2014, Washington 2014, Oregon 2015. These are established markets that the palates are becoming a little more diverse, and people are kind of graduating from flower alone, right? So,
yeah, Lance, and I'd also say, there's this moment when you look at all the stuff that you're doing in a business, and you start saying, "Wait, why am I throwing all that away?"
Yeah.
I can get something out of that. And it's a question of, what's the simplest way to get the value out of that product. And, that becomes a big part of your conversation. I mean, we do it with stainless steel. I have tons of stainless steel that we take to recycle. That's a wretched way to get rid of stainless steel, man. Almost throwing it away. You get 27 cents out of a pound. It's horrible. But the point is that, if you can take something and not do much to gain that value, that's a real big part of any business in my mind.
No, very true.
Something I would totally add to that too is that, since you guys, and especially people that are looking at trimmers, often they take their trim and they might send it off to somebody else to process for them. And they have, an agreement where some of it goes to the person who's extracting it, and then they get some out the other end. But that's one of the other nice things with being able to actually sift your trichomes yourself, is that then you can really capture a lot more of your own margin at your own operation. And of course, it depends on your state and what's legally available to you with your license and things like that. But in a lot of cases, especially on the medical end of things, you can recapture a lot of the profit from your grow by not sending out your trim to other places. So just going right along, with, as you could say, using all parts of the buffalo here, I think that this plays very nicely into that. And we're definitely starting to see growth there of businesses that are, they've done something one way for a very long time. And sometimes it can be hard to change. But this is like a small, painless change that certain growers can also take advantage of and start adding value to their bottom line.
And that's so important when you're evaluating everything in your business, right? I don't know. For me, it's frustrating to see waste. One of the products that we buy is like this virgin, beautiful, high density polyethylene plastic, and it's the best plastic that you can buy. And we have all of this, it's got to have a value. Like, you've got to go, well, there has to be something I can do with this instead of just throwing it away. And that's the way I feel about everything in my business, for sure. So I know that every business owner at some point is evaluating every ounce of energy, if you will, and deciding where can I gain. And this is a simple way. When I invented this, I don't know, Eric, if you ever saw way back in the day, when I first made this, I had my 215 trimmer was on top of an Alchemist. Mm-hmm. It was all set up that way. And, but that was way early. I mean, we could go back at that maybe, but that was way early. But that was the whole idea, is that nothing goes to waste. You just continuously process through your product. I mean, you can still take biomass and extract biomass after you pull the trichomes off. I mean, there's value. You could use a different, less expensive extraction method, and get to a crude or whatever. I mean, there's just a lot of ways to look at how you can completely use everything that you have and not waste that money, because it throwing away money is expensive.
It is. You guys know, and we always hear it. Eric, I know your team has the same exact approach with regard to your clientele, that you're very consultative. And that's exactly it. I think you guys make some very valid points. Eric, you point out the fact that, in many states now, of course, you guys check your local laws with your municipality as far as rules and regulations, but there are many that don't require additional licensing or fire inspection or evaluation of operation for you to do this kind of extract, as opposed to bringing in a large scale CO2 machine or something similar. So I think that's a very valid point. To your point, Cullen, looking at what the effective medium price, right now, I think we're 1,400 wholesale, again, national average, according to MMR, price per pound. And then looking at some of these indoor grow operations, I hate to pick on the guys down south. Everyone knows me. I'm an outdoor at heart. But a lot of these indoor grow operations, their effective net per pound is coming in at like $800 or $900. You don't have the margin to waste. And that's the next level. Like, you guys are both obviously very smart businessmen, business owners, looking at how much can I retain, how much can I recoup. So definitely great examples. Eric, could you go through, this is, and I love this video. I love the last video we had, two of you, but kind of talk through a little bit here, for those that are a little more novice. Did we not just see some dry ice go in that box right there?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways that you can make Sift, and it really just depends on what you're trying to go for your end product. So, early in your webinar when you were quoting yields, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it, but it really comes down to what kind of SKUs are you trying to make out the other end. So if you're really focused on making a food grade level keef, something that isn't going to be sold as a grammed, dabbable, concentrated dispensary, using dry ice can be a great way to get your yields up and to add more, to what you're bringing out of your Alchemist. So you can see, in the video here, how you've got these trays that are full of this keef. Now, what's often going to happen when you use dry ice, though, is that it's a bit of a double-edged sword, and that it will increase your yields, but at the same time, it can introduce some plant matter into your final keef as well, because trichomes are such delicate structures, and dry ice is so cold that there's trade-offs depending on what you're trying to shoot for. So if you're trying to make a keef that you're ultimately going to be either pressing into a really high-quality Sift rosin that's then going to be sold in a grammed category, then usually we would say, do your first runs without any dry ice. Peel off those super high-quality trichomes and use those, and then come back into the process, use a little bit of dry ice, maximize your yield, and then making sure that you're pulling out as much as you can. So, for us, when we're talking with our clients and they're asking us, hey, what's the best way to maximize the ROI of my Alchemist 420, for example, that's generally what we're going to tell them is, well, what are you starting with? What are you trying to accomplish? And how much work are you willing to put into it too? Because as you know, when it comes to really, really high-end products that command really high prices per gram at the dispensary shelf, sometimes that keef has to be cleaned after the fact to get it to a point where consumers are willing to pay those prices. But where a lot of businesses end up is that they're actually just trying to find something that's more of a middle ground because it's cheaper and easier to do. There's less production costs and they can get more yield out the other end. But it just depends on your brand. It depends on what your market is interested in and what your consumers are willing to buy. And ultimately, again, it just comes down to what you're trying to make and the steps to take to get it there.
I think you put it phenomenally well, Eric, because if we looked at that infographic again, like you said, you could definitely segment out the few that are more that top shelf that need that level of attention and focus. And then some of those other elements, again, edibles being a great example to where you're okay with kind of more of that mid-grade output, right? Something that is just able. And again, also to you, Cullen, I know plenty of people that even after they go through this process, to your point, they still take that trim and still use that as kind of more of a low grade or entry level edible. So you're still able to extract, obviously, the cannabinoids that exist within that trim above and beyond the trichomes that you're pulling out. So again, we see all this on the shelves. Like I said, I'm a little stoked to see moon rocks being less popular because I do have my apprehension around, keeping moisture bound within the flower and then sealing it in there. But anyway, I do know the roll-in and obviously sprinkling keef on pre-rolls. Pre-rolls has gone up exponentially in sales, especially pinners or dog walkers as we know them over the last year. But people throwing in keef, obviously a lot of the shatter and wax I think has always been a commonality. But hash, again, I do also on the side, we lost a friend, an industry friend, a friend of mine anyway. Eric, I'm sure you knew him. Our condolences to Frenchy Cannoli. Speaking of this, that is some really, really tough news to hear earlier this week. For those that know, Frenchy Cannoli, Nicotee, these guys are definitely big players in this aspect of the industry. So when we caught the news, that Frenchy had passed away on Sunday, definitely hard to hear. Definitely condolences to him, to his family, and to his wife. You guys, anything further that you want to add here as far as touch points on concentrates and extracts? And then Eric, maybe actually, really quick, I know we just have a few more minutes, but curious, as far as the machines that you have to offer, and I think we might have a slide on that too. So if maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on what you all have to offer as far as this category as well.
Yeah, and we're really excited. We've been working with GreenBroz for a long time now, many years. So any of this rosin equipment, rosin presses, everything else, talk to your GreenBros sales rep, talk to someone at the GreenBros team. But we offer rosin presses of multiple sizes. You can see our commercial units here that are really our flagship models, the Pikes Peak and the Longs Peak. And we offer equipment for solventless processing, from top to bottom. And GreenBros being one of our top partners, it's really easy to get what you need from them. And we also have, like you said earlier, a very consultative sales process so that, actually Brady, who is the main person working with GreenBros and the GreenBros sales team, really likes to work with those prospects and with the people that are, interested in Solventless to learn what are you really trying to accomplish so that we can help you get size with the equipment that you need. So this is something that we've been doing for a long time. Like you said, we started in 2015, and it's incredible to see just how quickly the industry has grown since then. But, we've been all over the world basically seeing what's going on with solventless and its growth. And that's really where we fit into the equation, is how do you make solventless products and the equipment in order to do it? So great images here. Our rosin presses are really lauded as the best ones in the industry. We have many of the top producers literally in the world using this equipment. So any questions that you guys got, I'm seeing a lot of them in the comments about micron screens. So even though that's a bit of a divergence, I figured I'd just give people that are tuned in something here that they can take home and have value with, is that when you're actually using your Alchemist, there are some different screens. And the smaller the trichome size, it's really going to depend on what screen you want to use. So there's smaller screens which have a smaller aperture, and then that's going to help dictate and grade out some of the different types of keef that you get out the other end. So there's so much to talk about here, but we really like working with you guys, and we've been at it for a long time together. I don't have a ton else to add, but if you guys have any questions about solventless equipment, definitely reach out to GreenBros, and they can get you everything that you need.
I would like to add that, when we started working together, I think the one thing that we knew right away was you guys were buttoned up and had, really had it nailed. Like when your equipment first launched, you were doing things that other people just weren't even thinking about. Referencing back to the straightening iron days or the t-shirt presses, but you guys really, you guys have looked at this in the similar way that we have, and that you approach it scientifically and you take a great deal of care and study. And I've seen some of the amazing things that you've been able to do just doing, variants on heat and pressure. So it's not just getting something hot and smashing it. There is a ton, and you guys have so much information on your website that I think is so valuable, but there's a ton of information about how you can actually get to the product that you want to get. And that's what's kind of really, I think, in my mind, when I started looking at that and started seeing some of the videos you guys have produced around really distinct isolation of specific cannabinoids through heat and pressure, that blows my mind. That we could do the kind of almost the same similar level of isolation that you could see in a solvent kind of arena, but not to go down that road too far. But just to let you know, PurePressure understands this better than anybody. They really understand this process better than anybody on the marketplace, and that's why we work with them, is because they get it. We're babies in the industry compared to that knowledge base as far as when you go to extraction. I got figured out how to get the heads off these guys figured out how to get the juice out. So they get it.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure working with you guys, and we look forward to the future too. But I wanted to mention that because I think,
Thank you.
You guys, you gotta, sometimes you get guys that come into the industry and they're like, oh, this is a great idea. And they come at it hard and halfway, and you don't get that refinement.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get that refinement. You get this kind of sloppy solution. And I think that's just selling yourself short. And then everybody's prices are so similar. So you're not going to find somebody that's just crushing everybody else on price. Everybody's priced in the same kind of ballpark. So why not look to the best products you can get to get the best products out at the end? Because it does make a big difference. So
well put.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words, and very well said. I mean, especially for business owners and operators, making an investment in what you're actually going to use for years and years and years, where you can really win is on the margins, being able to get a better product or to make it more consistently or to take less time making that product. Spending a little bit up front to make sure that you're getting products that have that control and equipment that can give you those benefits. When you really break down what your ROI looks like over the long haul, it's pretty incredible how it turns out. And that's why we get so many people talking to us.
Awesome. I love that statement. And I'm not trying to just say that, but you know what, there's this moment where you really see, when you start studying your business and you really see you can say, oh, I'm going to go after labor because that's a big one. Everybody goes after these big things, but you start going after the little things, they start adding up, man. And all of a sudden you're going, oh, look at all this money I've saved. Look at all this value I brought back into my business. Look at what I'm able to do now. I think that's why these solutions like this can become so valuable, especially price point wise. I mean, it's a no-brainer when you look at the pricing. So
that's true. Yeah, return on investment I think is a solid one there. Well, we do have a few questions. I know we're running a little long, guys. We appreciate it. We still want to share the promo with you just now. But Artur actually had a question about what is the most common screen size, which I do know there's a variance in sizes. So Cullen, of the, I believe 180 micron, 80 micron, 135 micron, are a few of the different screens that we offer with the machine. But what is the most common? What's the one most common?
It was one thing and now it's another. I think most people generally start with 180, and it's because it gets the bulk of things out pretty quickly. We use a surgical steel screen that is designed for screen printing electronics. So the mesh holes are perfect. This is a perfect screen, as perfect as you can get as far as that goes. So it's stretched with the same amount of tension in both directions. So you don't get ovals, you get perfectly set screen sizes. And that's one of the things that I think is very important to understand. So regardless of what screen size you get, your sizing is going to be the best that it can be. And we find that a lot of people start with the 180s, and we do get people who graduate to other screen sizes throughout the process, or they go, I want something a little bit smaller. And we've got people that want something a little bit bigger, but that's kind of fits right in the middle of the deal.
Perfect. Another question, I'll give you guys the answer really quick. I know we're out of time. The 215, you can utilize about 2.5 pounds of trim, whereas when you get into the Alchemist, the 420 version of the Alchemist, rather, you're in at about 8 to 10 pounds. So obviously substantial size difference there. There's a few other things. Thank you, Lisa. Obviously, Lisa's always a rock star in the question and Q&A chat. So she did a really good job, I think, answering a bulk of these. I want to actually give, some quick shout outs really quick. Actually, Marco, I think you're there in the wings, my friend, and maybe we can go over the poll and share the promo. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend.
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, great webinar. Thank you, Eric, for taking the time, and Cullen and Lance. It's been a pleasure. I just wanted to point out a few of our friends out there who are watching. We've got some friends from Can Farm, Peru, which I think is in Peru, which is exciting. Who else? Aurora's on the line watching. Shout out to MediSun and Sun Med Growers. Napakin. I like the sound of that one. White Buffalo Cultivation Company, Wholesome Company, Earthquake Resource, Dubai Wellness Spa. Wow, maybe that's actually in Dubai. George Gold. I mean, this is amazing, guys. International reach. We appreciate all of you guys as clients and partners in this industry. We're all building together. I just wanted to do a quick shout out. So thanks, Lance.
Definitely not a problem. Not a problem at all. So going down to the polls, and I don't know if you have Marco or maybe Wes. We actually have another individual that's constantly in the background in the wings, but we can definitely go over the polls just now. We also have handouts. For those that didn't see it, we have handouts. If you go to the upper right-hand corner, we have the Alchemist 215 spec sheet. We have the Alchemist 420 spec sheet. We also have the FAQs for both the 250 and the 420. So if there's something that we didn't get a chance to answer throughout this webinar or just now, feel free to grab one of those. You can also obviously reach out to us anytime via GreenBros handles on social media or direct at GreenBroz.com. The promo. So one thing I am happy to share for those that are on the call that might already have an Alchemist or are interested in purchasing an Alchemist, we're actually offering 40% off the screen sets. So as Cullen mentioned, while the 180 is a pretty popular starter, it's a catch-all. We also have obviously different sizes. If you want to get more specific, this is something, again, Eric, I think touched on briefly, but being able to sort based on what SKU or what offering you're wanting to provide from the end product, that's definitely a factor in which screen you'd use. And then we can connect you with one of our territory managers to discuss that a little bit further. But we are offering 40% off for all that attend. Don't worry, we'll include that in the email, the follow-up email we send up after this. We definitely appreciate everyone pitching up on the polls. I don't know if we have the results yet from that.
Just quickly, Lance, on the screen size, we chose the three that we chose. Purchasing power allows you to get the pricing into a reasonable place. But I mean, honestly, you can get almost anything you wanted to get. It just is cost. It's a cost issue. So we chose those three because they cover the gambit basically from top to bottom and give us what our most commonly asked for sizes are. But if you had a specific ask, there's a considerable amount of upcharge on it, but it is available.
Perfect. That is a really good point, Cullen. You guys, we are a manufacturer. Obviously, you all use U.S. made, U.S. grade, not just assembled. We're actually manufactured, designed every aspect of our product here in the U.S. So we do have accessibility for doing custom solutions, and that does obviously pertain to this suite of offerings as well. So again, we'll definitely be able to provide additional information, including the promotion, some additional insights and contact information in the follow-up email to this webinar. I do want to personally thank as well, Eric. Man, it's been awesome to see how successful you guys have been over the last several years. It's like dog years, dude. I mean, seriously, I know about you, dude. I feel like it's been like 10 or 15 years that we've been in it, but you guys
haven't even got gray yet. Come on, man.
I don't know how he does it.
It's a little different up here. I don't know.
It must be the altitude. It's got to be the altitude. Cullen, obviously, always a pleasure, man. You're awesome. And then Marco, the man, the magic behind the scenes. Definitely want to thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Again, apologize for running a little bit long here. We definitely appreciate your time, and we're here to support you in any way possible. Thank you, the international folks, for calling in at the wee hours of the morning or the late hours of the night to be able to join this as well. Until next time, we will be having a webinar later next month. We do these on a monthly basis, so we'll have some more insight and details to that in the email following as well. Thank you again on behalf of GreenBros and PurePressure. We will talk to you again soon. Thanks.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Getting out into nature is not just an enjoyment, but it's a necessity. That's where I'm at peace, and that's where I get a lot of inspiration for design. And that's kind of the philosophy of our business, is to keep things simple and clean.
Being able to be on the outside of the industry to create a product for the industry was a true blessing. It really hit home for me as an extractor as well as a grower that no matter what type of extraction you want to do or process that you want to do, we wanted to really give the user that control to do what they want with it. It was the next level for us.
GreenBros is a perfect partnership for PurePressure because they pretty much handle from cultivation all the way up until the concentrate, and PurePressure steps in and takes all of these raw materials, these wonderful raw materials that come from GreenBros equipment, and turn it into these solventless concentrates that everyone's craving right now. We treat every customer individually, and our goal is to have every single person 100% satisfied. And I come in here every day, and so does everybody else, and we give 110% to make the best possible equipment. We don't settle or sleep until we've done that. When you buy a piece of our equipment, you're buying all of that effort, all of that energy, which is now years of development and perfection to get to something that we believe in. And we stand behind all of our products. Everything's backwards compatible, upgradable. We just want a good customer experience. And if our customers are happy with our products and they come back to us for more, then that's the kind of relationship we're trying to build.